everything you need to know about products and services that can improve your life. This is Experts on Call on CL 650.
'Cause you belong to the city. You belong to the night.
And welcome back to Strata Life. And as we mentioned off the beginning, so many people in the Lower Mainland live in a strata. This is a topic that hits so many people really right where they live. From Quay Pacific Property Management, we have Drew Grout. We have Gordon Lai from CMW Insurance and David Shepard from CanStar Restoration. Now, Drew, you have a question for Gordon. We were talking about...
I got two.
Two of them. All right.
So we were talking earlier about the $10 million, $1 million deductible because it's 10%.
Okay, let's just paraphrase because somebody might be tuning in. Gordon, you mentioned if you have earthquake insurance and you have 10% deductible on a $10 million building...
It's $1 million.
It's $1 million.
$1 million.
Yeah. So if that property is not just one building, let's say 3 buildings, and they're all 1/3 of that value for each, and the earthquake only affects one of the buildings, then the deductible will be 10% of that building's portion of the value, and not won't be $1 million, be $300,000 in that case.
You are correct. For a CMW policy. This is not a standard thing on a lot of policies out there, so that's something unique on our policy.
That's why I asked.
Knowing that it would be divided up based on those buildings are damaged, and if the others aren't, then you take the value of those buildings and you apply that deductible. On standard policies out there, it's deductible on the whole thing. Yeah. There's no separation. So yes, in a standard policy, those poor people would say, that one building, it's not even worth $1 million.
So here's a question for you, getting back to you dealing with councils. So could someone look into this and bring this up and say, listen, we should have these buildings individually insured and so that we don't have these large deductibles?
They're individually valued to make up the total. So your appraisal company does that.
Okay.
And so that's where we look for that valuation.
But Gordon's saying that's the way they write the policy. So that's a question. So if you're in a building, you should read that policy to find out.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because not all policies are the same. So someone might go and say, look, we got this other policy, we think it's great. What's the difference? So, it comes to what's on that one page doesn't really tell you everything. And they'll always have a bottom, right? Subject to, the restrictions. And then you got that big, thick wording. And that's really what, I would say experts like myself, that's what you pay the value for. Because most people will take a ruler and say, well, the numbers are the same. That's 10 mil, that's 10 mil. Deductible is the same. 5,000, and then what's the premium on the bottom? So those are the key things the average consumer will look for because that's all they know. Very few, I would say less than 1% of clients or consumers I have will read the wording and actually call me and say, like, on page 5, section 5A, let's discuss this. And I've had people do that, but very, very
So let's say we have a little bit of a shake and a gas hose or gas line becomes fractured and starts a fire and burns the building down. Is that a fire claim or is that an earthquake claim?
Yeah, I've always wondered that too.
That's a good question. Most likely, industry-wise, from my experience, based on, like say floods in the Red River in Winnipeg, what came first? Is it a surge backup or the flood? The industry itself probably will get together and with a government agency or something and come up with, did the earthquake was there a substantial earthquake in this area that caused the damage first and fire after? So basically, without the fire, that thing would have been demolished anyways. Or was it so minor that, there's buildings that never had the pipes. And they would come, and it might be a ballot, like a kind of blend of both. So then I've seen, like in Winnipeg, they say industry prorate. We would say that we would pay 50% of the loss because average people by Red River, there was some sort of backup that occurred. We realize that. So we'll say 50-50. We would pay half of it. Half is damage.
Some people might be saying the insurance companies are all getting together to figure out how they're not going to pay, right? That's the way the average person would look at that discussion.
They would. And that's why government agencies and various things will come together and have, I guess, reviews and technically look at what happened. Because I think in a case like that, it would be hard to determine. I think most people would say, well, of course it was the fire. Why wouldn't they? But, how's it adjusted? Then they have to come with some determination and prove that, no, that's not. And I've had claims, not earthquake, but say wind damage versus flooding, waves on the thing. And
Yeah, well, I've had one where it was a pipe leak. It was a fire sprinkler thing that went off, and it was treated as a water claim, which was a higher deductible than property claim, which was fire. Yeah. And after approaching the company, they reevaluate and say, yes, it was caused by the fire, not by the burst pipe.
That's probably more of a my experience, that's more of a judgment. The adjuster looked at it quickly and said, oh, so much water damage and made it air and that. But a lot of times we rely on like CanStar as well. What is the cause of the loss? And sometimes it's not clear. Where's the water coming from? Or was it a seepage that came slowly that's really not covered? Or did it leak all of a sudden? So sometimes we get experts like CanStar bringing in their trades and people.
We're offering almost always deferring to you guys to let us know what the cause was. That helps us determine what action and avenue we're going to take.
And its value. I could tell you there's a value of like experts like CanStar. So, you have a broken pipe, say 3-year-old condo, a nail went through it from the developer. CanStar will go in once it's determined, little things like they'll cut the pipe out, fix it, keep the pipe, bag it, and our adjuster gets it. There's subrogation. We've had cases where we go, that's what happened. It goes, where's the pipe? We threw it out.
Yeah. Well,
no pipe, no smoking gun, no subrogation. And these are very minor things that people don't see, but it affects them. It affects their deductible. It affects a whole bunch of things. It could be a large loss where it affects their claim record to say, that wasn't the Strata's fault. But if you can't subrogate, then, it's bad news for the Strata.
So bag it is what you're saying.
Bag
Keep it.
Yeah.
All right. The next question goes to David. It says, we talk about the elements of a safety plan that unit owners should have in place for an emergency situation in their Strata. We touched on this a little bit earlier. Water shutoffs is one. What other parts of an emergency plan should you have?
Well, it's again, this large loss we were looking at provides a lot of insight into that. So, yeah, certainly safety first. So you do have to be sure in the event of any sort of catastrophic event that you're looked after personally. But it did bring to mind an interesting point on the large loss that we have, where everyone evacuated and they presumed it was a drill. And so, certainly the personal safety aspect was get out of the building, but they left pets behind, they left wallets behind, passports, keys, everything, and they all wound up on the street with nothing, and they were never allowed back. Well, they were 3 weeks getting back in.
So that is. Everybody says just leave it behind, but grabbing your wallet's probably not a bad idea.
Well, I had a friend who was, ran into that, and just the panic there, and it's so easy to forget to just grab a couple of things that you will regret not having. Yeah. Passports is a big one.
Yeah, in this particular building, there was actually some participants in the freelance pharmaceutical trade as well, and they left their stock behind. They were very upset.
or have a firebox of some sort.
Yes.
Do they work? I've seen those. Do the fireboxes work?
Depends on the firebox, I guess. Refrigerators can be helpful if you don't have anything like that, because very rarely do things inside the fridge.
It could be a week or two, like they've said. They don't allow you back into to your unit to get your personal, and so 3 weeks if you have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough ride.
And I would say on the fridge part, by the way, after 3 weeks, we don't even look in them. We just drop them up and throw them in the dumpster.
Yeah, if you're brave enough to open it up.
You've got some equipment that provides some good recovery of electronic equipment and that sort of thing, right?
Yes. Yeah, lots of that.
All right, one last question. We have several floods in our parkade. Do we have to do anything other than pump the water out?
There's lots of tests that we can do to be sure if anything's contaminated. The source of the water is usually the issue as to where that's going to come from. Parkades are, there's lots of concrete in there, and you're going to have oil and everything mixed in with it. You need to know what's in the water, where it's gone, but it can also, in the case of an overland flood, it's always interesting to see it could have come across a field with pesticides in it, or it could be, in the case of some of the major catastrophes, it's gone through a gas station and then come across the field. So we can test, and we do that routinely, where we would look to see if there's going to be mold or any sort of contamination, bacteria or something like that. But for the most part, parkades dry out pretty well.
Well, and the thing is, if you've had several floods in your parkade, you kind of got to get to the root of the problem, which is maybe there is a root in your drain and it's backing up. So that's where you got to do some research, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Most definitely.
yeah, this is that forgotten part of the Strata is the parking lot. It's like a grudge maintenance item.
I wouldn't say it's forgotten. It's like anything in the Strata, or I shouldn't say anything, most things, you tend to pay attention to those things that are most likely to bother you or affect you. And if you're living high on the hill, you're not having water issues, you're not thinking water issues.
Yeah.
But if you're having a lot of water issues, you have to start thinking about what we can do. And if you get a couple of little sewer backups in a sump in an underground thing, and you have to go out and rent a sump pump, that should be telling you that we got something larger happens. Mm-hmm. We need to do something because vehicles get damaged from these things, and if you have so you really need to be proactive in that respect, and often the indicator is, what's your experience been? If you've had a few drains, landscape drainage that's have been affected by roots, that's telling you probably have other ones. It's like your arteries. If I'm blocked here, I'm probably blocked over here. You get them all cleaned out, get them checked out.
So you call the same guy for the arteries, by the way?
Rotary.
Not recommended. This isn't the doctor's show.
Yes.
Drew Grout, that's the voice of Drew Grout from Quay Pacific Property Management. Gordon Lai has been our insurance voice here today from CMW Insurance. And the director of CanStar Restoration, David Shepard, has also been our guest. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. It's always great talking with you about Strata Life. May the force be with you.
And with you.
All right. We'll speak to you next time on CL 650.
Thank you.